Welcome to Jean Lindsay's Home and Garden, a magical place that shows she clearly has a green thumb. It's filled with lovely plants and fairy gardens.
I'm Jean Lindsay, and I've been a master gardener since 2005. I've done lots of things with master gardeners because there are lots of good opportunities to be involved, and if you haven't tried some of them, you want to do that, and you probably want to try some things that you haven't tried. It's kind of difficult right now, but this too shall pass, and then there will be opportunities to get together and lots of things to do with master gardeners. We like our house very much, but we do miss not having a view. Well, our view is roofs and gray fence. Gray roofs are roofs, I guess it's roofs, and gray fence. And our bedroom windows look out on this. So that was not very good.
When Jean and her husband moved in, the property in the back was just contractor leftovers. There was mud, trash, and hard-packed clay.
And I wanted to get something down out here right away. So I thought, well, I had done a sort of lasagna gardening before. Not really lasagna gardening because I'm too lazy to do that. But I had put down newspapers and lots of amendments, whatever I could find, manure and topsoil and compost and just lots of things. And then we put some stepping stones down on top of that. Well, that was our view for the first winter. And long about March, I couldn't do that until October. And long about March, I couldn't stand it anymore. Well, the amendments had not been down there long enough to have really worked their magic. And I had lots of things in pots that I wanted to put in because I couldn't stand the way it looked anymore. So I dug down through the amendments and I got to the clay. And it was really hard. So all I could do was dig out a little depression, not a hole, just a little scoop. And I put a plant in each little depression, and then I got more amendments. And I built up and I covered up the root area of the plants with the amendments. And that's how I did it. I mean, that's how I planted the garden. Now, would you like to come inside and see what happened after that?
Absolutely.
I put down the well, I didn't put down the stepping stones. I had the stepping stones put down in that configuration so that I didn't have to step. I could reach almost everywhere except in the corners, and I very rarely have to go into the corners. Had to be here because I really had to have a place to work. And this was the most out of the way corner I could find, but there is no out of the way place in this little garden because it's so little. Come on in and I will show you my successes and my failures. This is a funny thing. I bought this on a master gardener trip to Watkinsville, Georgia, to Specialty Ornamentals, and it was a sprig. About like so. And I had read that, I wanted it for a fairy garden because I had read that Japanese maples were very good for bonsai. Well, bless its heart. I mutilated it over the years just terribly. It doesn't look so mutilated. The mutilation's pretty much covered up now, but I completely mutilated it trying to make it stay small, and it would not. But it was living in a pot when we came, and I put it in the ground and it went phew. But now it sort of blocks the view of the work area from what's back here. This is another not so good thing that's going to have to be replaced. This was a Moselle lantana that I really liked, but it's way too big, and it was just all over everything. And I cut it back so much that it really didn't bloom enough to make itself worthwhile. I thought, well, this must be a cottage garden. And roses, have to have a rose in a cottage garden. So I got a drift rose, and it grows too much too, and I cut it back. And it doesn't, nobody really cares about it. The butterflies don't really care, the birds don't really care. I think I'm going to put something else in there. And you can see I have a drip system, which works sort of well. This is a Bobo hydrangea, which was supposed to be 3 feet tall. I'm pretty sure that's taller than 3 feet. And it too was, came out, so I had to cut it back. And knowing that it's going to be so big, next year I think I will cut it back earlier, and maybe it will grow more, more satisfactory, not more more aesthetically. I bought a lot of times early on to see which times would do best. I was trying to cover the ground before Mother Nature could do it. So this one is all right now. This is a mother of time. It took it a long time to grow. Out here in the middle, I just have a mishmash of things because I just kind of like mishmashes. Dianthus, and you can see lots of little tufts of it if you look through this center. When there is enough of it, it blooms all year long. Nice. It blooms with a big burst in the spring, but I have seen this bloom in the snow. And of course, there's one bloom down here. Of course, it didn't bloom for you. Sorry. Over on the far side, there is a pink chintz that's blooming. If anybody wants a thyme as a ground cover, I recommend that one, because that one I've had to pull back off the stepping stones. I mean, it's just gone crazy, and there were 2 little bitty pots of it.
What's the name again?
Pink chintz thyme.
Pink chintz thyme. Okay.
Mostly what I have out here is white mazes, which blooms white, surprise, in the spring. Because it doesn't matter if I step on it. It doesn't care at all.
Okay.
I had it in a fairy garden because it made a nice little shrub. It's a scutellaria.
Scutellaria.
And it just goes all over.
It's cute.
It is cute. It doesn't get any bigger than that. And it blooms, these are little seeds left, but it blooms purple. And it just sits there. These things are pink daylilies. Not daylilies, they are pink rain lilies. I had daylilies out here to begin with, and they didn't interfere with the movement around the stepping stones, but they were so big they just made it feel crowded.
Gotcha.
And so they had to go elsewhere. This is a funny thing. It has susical looking flowers. It's a lediburia, and it's bulbs. And there's a big clump of it over there. And it has a tendency to move about. Oh, let me tell you about this. This has been a surprise. That's what's left from a Lycoris radiata. And I brought a lot of bulbs, and I put them in all around. And then I sort of forgot where I had put them. And nothing bloomed out here last year. But I had lots of blooms over there next to the fence. And I think you can probably see now. See those little strappy things?
Spiky things?
Yes. Those are left from, that's what the Lycoris does after it blooms. It sends up its foliage, and then the foliage stays there until, it'll be there all winter. And in the spring it dies back, and you forget that they're there. And then just recently they have come up. I think I cut the last ones down yesterday. But those over there did not bloom.
Interesting.
And these I had forgotten I put out here. So I don't know if maybe next year they will all bloom, or if some years some bloom and some years don't. I just don't know that. Bring this. This must have come as a seed. It's hardy ageratum. And ordinarily it's way tall. But it's very cooperative, because once I realized it was sitting here in the spring, I just whacked it off. And all I had to do was just one whack. And there it is.
And when
now.
did it bloom, or does it bloom all year?
No,
or all
it blooms
summer?
now.
Oh,
just
it's a
blooms
fall
now.
bloomer. Okay.
Right. And it's a pretty color, and it's sort of a welcome. At this size, it's sort of a welcome little flower there. Okay, this is a favorite bush right here. This is called Sarissa, and it's going to be covered with these little bitty white flowers. No, that's one that's fallen off. Here's one that's still attached. And it doesn't get any bigger than that. It's sort of a wild and woolly grower, but it's a nice size. And let's see, down here was a pretty area not long ago, and last year was very pretty, but Delta smushed down the chrysanthemums. These are Ryan's pink chrysanthemums. And last year they were standing up with the coreopsis, and they were helping to hold up the Georgia asters. The Georgia asters are fairly annoying, but I feel compelled to take care of them because they're right at the edge of the endangered list. And sometimes they're on it and then they get off and then they go back. But I've tried to cut these back. Well, I have cut these back. I've tried to cut them back and fatten them up. And I haven't been able to do it. And I've cut them back until I'm afraid if I cut them back anymore, they won't have time to bloom. My bottles have faded. And so I need to get, I think maybe, I don't know, I would like to have a native vine to grow on the bottle tree.
That would be fun.
Passion flower grows 25 feet and it could fall over. I just don't know. I just don't know. And I don't want it to run wild. Have more mazes here. Oh, this is my grass. Because we don't have a lawnmower anymore.
Yeah.
The HOA takes care of all of the lawn things, and I wanted something for my little table. So this is my grass. Pink preference salvia, the remains of some phlox paniculata. I did have a big black-eyed Susan over there, but it was not cooperative, and it took a long time to bloom, and when it did, it immediately turned brown. And in a tiny space like this, if it's ugly, it's really ugly. So I've replaced that with a pink muhly grass, and maybe next year the pink muhly grass will be pretty. Or, well, you know, it's a conundrum. Either optimistic people tend to be gardeners, or gardening makes people optimistic, because we're always living in the next year. You know, this year the Delta smushed the chrysanthemums, but wait till next year. Oh, and I'm growing shade. These are, what are these? These are quick fire hydrangeas, and they will grow 8 feet tall. And I will keep them limbed up so that I have the stuff at the top, the flowers, the leaves,
The crown.
everything at the top.
Yeah.
And hopefully they will provide me some shade. I've always been mostly a shade gardener, but not anymore.
You get afternoon sun?
That's west.
That's west.
That's west. So the
yeah.
afternoon sun just beams in
Yeah,
here.
I bet.
This is my olive tree, and this is my olive. And there's another one I saw. Oh, here, look. I don't know what to do with them. There's another one. Look, this one's red.
Awesome.
Can you see it?
I can. I hope my camera can.
And the little tree was covered with buds and blooms, but the birds ate them.
Those birds.
The birds just munched up the buds.
Huh.
Over in the I have some more rain lilies in the back. Those are really pretty little rain lilies. Of course, they aren't going to bloom for you now. Those are called lily pies, and they are pink and white. And this is white wood aster right here, which is looking pretty reddy now. Oh, this is this is a dianthus bloom. This is the one that blooms all year long when you have enough of it. And it starts out white, and then it's pink, and then it's deep rose, and then it's brown. So at any one time, if there's a mass of them, there are all three shades there.
Neat.
And this is another pink preference, which is cooperating for you. These were in pots. Here's a bird feather. We have had 3 families of bluebirds, and the first 2 years, the poor lady bluebird had 3 different broods, and we learned that it's interesting because the juvenile bluebirds from the first brood hang around with their parents all that season, and then they help out with collecting worms and whatever for the next babies that come along if they're needed. Last year the bluebirds didn't do very well though, and they only had 2 broods, and then there was for a long time no activity at all. And it was kind of sad, and I came over and opened up the box, and there was a dead bluebird in there, and I think it was the mother. So, oh, this is interesting. This is Major Wheeler Lonicera, and it's supposed to be evergreen, and it's not really evergreen. It's sort of semi-evergreen because you can see the leaves are dying back now. But I planted it for the hummingbirds. The hummingbirds like it a lot. Oh, and I ordered it. We had, several years ago for the symposium, we had a man from Georgia who has a vine nursery. And he talked at the symposium about vines. And when I wanted I looked and I read about it. I knew that this was what I wanted to get. And then I had to try to find it. And I was having difficulty finding it locally, and it may have just been because it was the time of year that I wanted it, but that was when I wanted it. So I remembered him, and I looked it up, and sure enough, he carried it. And when it came, it was in a large pot. It may have been, I don't know if there is a 2-gallon pot. I don't know. It was a large pot, and there was no top growth at all. But the pot was full of roots. And when I put it in, it just went, and there it is.
And you planted it less than 3 years ago?
Oh yeah.
Look at the vines.
I couldn't plant anything until spring of 2018.
Wow.
So
it is significant.
Well, it just really grew fast, and it was so interesting that there was no top growth on the pot. Do miniature fairy garden presentations for the Speakers Bureau, and before we moved, I just tucked my little pots up under bushes and shrubs. I didn't have any place to put them. I didn't have any shade. So I thought I made some pedestals of sorts and put them back there, and I put my pots on them, and they just roasted before this vine started to grow. There just really wasn't any shade back there. So I just sort of made a hill and put some other things on it. That's what I call that lazy man's bonsai. And they are planted in little, look. They're planted in little clay pots. And that one obviously is in a bigger pot than this. Here's a little tree that's planted in. This little tree is planted in a pot, and in the clay pots the water can go back and forth.
So you just leave them in the pot.
They will be happy in those pots for 2 years, and then after 2 years you pull it up, and it doesn't leave a mess because the roots have been in a pot. And then you have to clean off the roots that are not looking so good, and stick it back in. And because if it can't expand its roots, it can't grow big. common name is poet's laurel. And most people may know, but I didn't know, that this is supposed to be the laurel that laurel wreaths were made from for Olympics winners. And, you know, this is supposed to be what Caesar wore around his head.
Okay.
But this thing, okay, this is called Tynanthea. And I bought one of these on another Master Gardener trip, this time to Plant Delights in Raleigh. And I planted it at my old house, my former house. And I planted it on the side in the front. And I enjoyed it for a season, and the next spring it did not appear. And I thought, that's just what happens. But a year or maybe 2 years after that, it was in the backyard. And so I enjoyed it in the backyard for several seasons. And I did not intend to bring it here. I like it very much, but I had no intention of bringing it here. And this year it just appeared. And I've wondered and wondered and wondered. This was in the yard. This citronelle heuchera was in a pot at the edge of a deck, and it was a low deck. So it's possible, I guess, that the seeds came and were and appeared. You know, just
volunteers from that.
Right, and this one just the Tynanthea just rode over with
That's
this
funny.
heuchera. But there it is.
There it
and
is.
It's doing very well, and I wouldn't move it for the world
No,
because I've never had
seriously.
a plant that picked out its own place before.